Hello friends, I am the Anti-Terrorist. Thank you once again for all of your messages of support and your emails, and for engaging in the conversation. Now this broadcast, I believe, is probably the most important broadcast I'll ever make. It certainly has a lot of information in it that you need to know, and that you need to act on. I hope you will listen to it in full, and pass it on to as many of your friends and associates as you possibly can. Over the past century, we people who were once independent, capable, and able to manage our own medical, financial, and legal affairs have now been reduced to dependence, reduced to incompetence. We have been made wards of powerful commercial, financial, medical, and legal corporations and bureaucratic institutions of the modern industrial society. And we've been taught to rely upon these professionals like bankers to manage our financial affairs, doctors to manage our health problems, lawyers to direct our business and legal affairs instead of relying upon our own good common sense. We've gotten to the point now where the government has to do everything for us. In fact, we have been taught to go to the state of the government every time we get a stomachache or every time we're hungry. We're no longer able to take care of ourselves. If you turned a Westerner loose with a live chicken, he'd make a pet out of it and starve to death. He couldn't kill that chicken, pluck it, cook it, and eat it. He has to go to McDonald's for his McNuggets. The government takes responsibility, takes good care of us, like FEMA takes care of you good people in New Orleans. God bless FEMA. Aren't they wonderful? They're just out there working their hearts out for you, aren't they? You pay your taxes, and here's what you get. Graft and corruption and theft on a scale unimagined until Hurricane Katrina. You know, a few years ago we appointed the Labour Party, and you elected Republicans in '94 to clean up the graft and corruption that had been brought on by about 40 years of Democratic control in Congress. Remember that, you Americans? You have more graft, more corruption, more bribery today in 2007 than you had under the Democrats and that we had under the Conservatives. And that's because the Democrats and the Conservatives think small. The Republicans and the Labour Party think big. Yes, it's true, the Democrats and the British Conservatives were criminals. They were crooks, they were liars, they were thieves, they were bribe takers, but they were small time compared to the Republicans and the Labour Party. Now friends, we Brits and Americans and Westerners do not live in the land of the free and the home of the brave. We live in the land of admiralty, where the captain decides, that is, your guardian decides for you what's good for you. And we've agreed to that in advance. The government has usurped the power of the people because the people didn't evidently care or didn't understand what their powers were. Government is not the servant of the people. Government is the absolute master of the people. You people out there cringe when the government agent comes over. You don't sit there and say to the government agent, "What are you doing here? What do you want?" We say, "Yes, sir, no, sir." We've been taught to be subservient to the government, and we are. We, the voters, see ourselves as being sovereign. We elect our representatives. We're the boss and they're our servants. And that's absolute nonsense. See, Bush is not your servant, he's your master. Brown is not our servant, he's our master. We haven't elected a servant, we've elected a guardian. And as guardians, they go to Washington or Parliament and make the laws that they determine are good for us. The wards. That's the way the game is played, that's the way it works. You know it as well as I do. You can sit there and write letters to your representative all you like till you're blue in the face. And they'll just pass whatever legislation that General Motors, Microsoft, and IBM tell them to. Now, if these guys are really our servants, you've got your chauffeur, your butler, and your cook making your laws for you and telling us when to get up, when to go to bed, and what to do in between. They rule over us with a rigor. We complain about being in the People's Republic of London or the People's Republic of New York. Come on, people. We are the sovereigns, and we're the masters, and our kitchen help is making our laws for us and telling us how to live. We call this freedom? We call this liberty? Well, what would you call tyranny? What would you call slavery? What greater tyranny can there be than a legislative body and a justice system working together in a jurisdiction called admiralty to compel you against your will and over your objection to do that which you do not want to do? You call that freedom? We call America and Britain the freest nations on earth? What the hell is free about that? And we're over there in Iraq trying to enforce that upon those Iraqis and call it democracy? No, we're not spreading freedom and liberty to the Iraqis. We're bringing tyranny upon the Iraqis. We're bringing the admiralty upon them. The Iraqis didn't even have an income tax until we forced our way in there and imposed it upon them. They didn't have gun control either, and we forced that upon them too. We brought upon the Iraqis the same tyranny we brought upon ourselves with this process of admiralty jurisdiction. You see, unknowingly, we, the people of America and Western Europe, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, have been cunningly coerced out of our common law rights and forced into this admiralty jurisdiction. Now, the method of persuading the people to volunteer into the civil law in the 20th century is accomplished by social security cards, driver's and business licenses, marriage licenses, and other contractual entanglements with the government. It's done by our consent. We give up our unalienable rights under the common law and our constitutions for privileges under the civil law of the state. Now, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, allow me to enlighten you. We have two forms of law on this planet, the rule of the sea and the rule of the land. The common law is the rule of the land and the people on the land. Historically, the common law has only dealt with land, labor, and substance. It's the law of property. It's predicated upon the Ten Commandments. Now, I don't want to get into a whole religious thing here, but I think even an atheist would agree that the Ten Commandments provides a fairly reliable moral compass. There are certain aspects to the Ten Commandments that work for society. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, etc. The civil law is the law of the ruler, the rule of the sea, the rule of money, admiralty jurisdiction. It is predicated upon the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto. And the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto is simply a reincarnation of the ancient Babylonian mystery religions that's been around for about 5,000 years. Now, admiralty law deals with profits, taxes, contracts. Now, you don't have to be on a ship at sea to come under admiralty jurisdiction. The jurisdiction can attach merely because the subject falls within the scope of maritime law, such as the use of bills, notes, checks, and credit. All of these fall under the scope of admiralty jurisdiction. Now, you can call it communism, you can call it socialism, you can call it admiralty, you can call it the Roman civil law, but it is the exact opposite, the diametric opposite of the Ten Commandments, 180-degree opposite to the Bill of Rights and your Constitution. If there's a contract involved, basically you're an admiralty. Now, there are 2.5 million laws in the West here, and they're all done by contract. You agreed to this. Now, maybe you didn't make an express agreement, but we have a thing called adhesion contracts. An adhesion contract, that's a contract that maybe you don't know anything about. You don't have to know anything about the terms and conditions of these contracts to be bound by them. A warranty, for instance, that's an adhesion contract. A driver's license, marriage license, business license, social security, the dole, they're all adhesion contracts. Now, of course, we Brits and us Americans and us Canadians and New Zealanders and Australians, we contract all the time. We contract with our government and we contract with our corporations, and the corporations contract with the government and the government contracts with the corporations. It's a very incestuous relationship. So what exactly is a contract? What exactly are we talking about here? Well, the definition is an offer with acceptance plus consideration over time. So there has to be consideration. Consideration is money. It doesn't have to be money, but it could be a mutual exchange of some sort. There has to be acceptance, there has to be an offer, and there has to be a time frame. If any one of those elements is missing, you don't have a contract. But every one of those elements is in place with a driver's license. And yet, if you go to a dictionary and you look at license, it says a license is not a contract. And they'll say Social Security isn't a contract. But excuse me, there's an offer, we accept it, there's a time frame, and there's consideration. Isn't that a contract? No, they tell you that's not a contract. But still, a rose by any other name. You can go and put any label you like on it, but for all practical purposes, ladies and gentlemen, when you've got an offer with acceptance over time with consideration, you've got a contract. And when you've got a contract, it's going to sit in admiralty. It's really that simple. Now, these contracts have consequences. When you sign up for the driver's license, you're inviting the traffic policeman to come into your life. When you're taken into the traffic court, you see, it's alleged that you've breached your contract. There's a duty that you had that you didn't perform. When you sign up for that business license, and you're acting in trade, commerce, business, and industry, then you're asking the state to butt into your life. When you join the army, you're asking someone to butt into your life. They'll tell you when to get up in the morning, when to go to bed, and what to do in between. There's little or no freedom involved with these admiralty contracts. Admiralty requires seaman's papers,